Madeline Carter adjusted her sleek black dress nervously as she entered the lavish penthouse overlooking Manhattan. The room was dripping with opulence. Crystal chandeliers, gold-accented furniture, and a crowd of ultra-rich elites sipping champagne. She had been invited to discuss a potential $5 billion business merger with the Whitmore family, one of the most influential dynasties in finance. But before anything could begin, she felt the subtle, biting stares. Whispers floated around the room, and she could almost hear the judgment beneath the polite smiles. It didn't take long for the family matriarch, Victoria Whitmore, to make her presence known. "Well, well, the ambitious young woman," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "We weren't expecting you to attend." Madeline's jaw tightened, but she forced a polite smile. "I'm honored to be here," she said calmly. Victoria's son Gregory smirked and added, "Don't worry, we'll try to be patient with someone inexperienced." Laughter rippled around the room. The subtle racism stung, but Madeline refused to rise to it. She reminded herself that tonight was about business, not their ignorance. As the mockery continued, Madeline sipped her champagne, her mind racing. Every insult and sideways glance reinforced a reality she had faced her entire life. They underestimated her because of her skin, assuming she lacked the knowledge, skill, or confidence to play in their league. But Madeline Carter wasn't just any entrepreneur. She had built an empire from scratch, turning a startup tech company into a global powerhouse. And she wasn't here to impress. They were here to negotiate a deal that could change the course of her company. As the evening progressed, she realized that the Whitmore's mockery had only strengthened her resolve. They were playing a game, but she was already 3 steps ahead. Every casual insult, every dismissive glance became fuel. When the conversation finally turned to business, Madeline held herself with calm authority, her eyes unwavering, her presence commanding. She was ready to remind them exactly who they were dealing with, on her terms. Madeline followed Victoria and Gregory to a private study adorned with rare artworks and gold-trimmed bookshelves. The tension was palpable. She set her tablet on the mahogany desk, ready to present her proposal. "Shall we begin?" Madeline asked politely. Her voice was steady, unflinching, carrying a subtle power that made the Whitmores glance at one another. Victoria's lips pursed. "Please, make it quick. We have many other commitments." Gregory leaned back, twirling a gold pen between his fingers. "We've seen a lot of ambitious women. What makes you think you can handle a $5 billion merger?" Madeline smiled faintly. "Because this isn't about ambition alone. It's about preparation, strategy, and results. Which is why, by the end of this meeting, you'll understand exactly why you need me on your side." As she presented, she detailed her company's growth, innovative technologies, and strategic partnerships. Every slide, every statistic was polished to perfection. Her confidence radiated, and slowly, the Whitmore's smirks faded. Gregory shifted uncomfortably, while Victoria's eyes narrowed, sensing that this meeting might not go as planned. Despite their earlier attempts to undermine her, Madeline maintained poise. Her arguments were clear, logical, and backed with data that left no room for debate. Every mocking comment they had made earlier became irrelevant against her undeniable competence. By the end of the presentation, the room was silent. Madeline looked at them calmly and said, "Now, let's discuss terms." Or, if you prefer, I can walk out and let someone else earn your $5 billion. Victoria's confidence wavered. She had never faced someone who didn't flinch under her social power. The matriarch realized that her usual intimidation tactics wouldn't work here. Madeline knew the deal was hers to control, and she wasn't afraid to leverage that power. Victoria and Gregory exchanged uneasy glances. The room that had once echoed with their laughter now felt heavy with tension. Madeline's calm, unwavering presence had shifted the power dynamics entirely. She wasn't just presenting numbers, she was asserting control. "I see," Victoria said finally, forcing a polite smile. "You certainly know your figures, but a $5 billion deal is delicate. It involves trust, reputation, legacy." Madeline's eyes locked on hers. "Exactly. And trust is earned, not assumed. Judging me before even listening doesn't inspire confidence." Gregory leaned forward, his tone sharp. "You're a bold one. You think you can just waltz in here and command respect?" Madeline smiled faintly, unbothered. "I don't command respect, I demonstrate it. And so far, my track record speaks louder than your words ever could." The air felt electric. Every insult they had thrown earlier had been absorbed and transformed into strategy. Madeline wasn't just defending herself. She was reclaiming authority. She laid out alternative terms, subtly introducing clauses that gave her leverage over the deal's execution. The Whitmores realized too late that they had underestimated her. Each line on the contract favored her company, ensuring that she could walk away at any time if their intentions weren't serious. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "You've clearly done your homework," she muttered. Madeline leaned in, voice steady and firm. "I've also done my observations. Mockery may work at a party, but in business, results speak. And if you can't treat partners with respect, I have no obligation to continue." Gregory's jaw tightened. He could feel the shift. He had expected this to be an easy negotiation, but Madeline had turned it into a battlefield where she held the advantage. By the time the meeting concluded, the Whitmores realized they had a problem. Madeline had the knowledge, the confidence, and the data. She had the upper hand, and she knew it. Later that evening, Madeline returned to her penthouse. She reviewed the notes, each figure, each clause, every minor concession she had strategically allowed. It all led to one conclusion. She didn't need the Whitmores. They had tried to belittle her, reduce her to a stereotype, and she had tolerated it only to assert her dominance in the room. But this was bigger than proving a point. It was about integrity, vision, and standing firm against those who underestimated her. With a composed hand, she drafted a brief message to Victoria. "After careful consideration, we will not be moving forward with the proposed $5 billion deal. We require partners who value collaboration and respect. Best wishes." She paused before sending it, savoring the quiet satisfaction that came from reclaiming her power. The Whitmores would soon realize that wealth alone doesn't guarantee control. Ambition, intelligence, and confidence, qualities Madeline possessed in abundance, could not be ignored or dismissed. She pressed send. The next morning, news of the cancelled deal began circulating in elite business circles. Whispers about the black woman who walked away from a $5 billion deal spread like wildfire. Social media picked up the story, praising Madeline for her courage, intelligence, and unwillingness to compromise her dignity. Victoria Whitmore's attempts to spin the narrative failed. Investors, analysts, and media outlets celebrated Madeline as a symbol of empowerment, someone who refused to be intimidated by wealth or prejudice. Madeline's company didn't suffer. In fact, confidence in her leadership skyrocketed. She secured new partnerships. Investors admired her decisiveness, and her reputation grew stronger than ever. Sitting in her office overlooking the city, Madeline reflected on the night. The insults, the whispers, the condescension. There had been nothing more than fuel. She had turned mockery into strategy, prejudice into power, and in doing so, reminded everyone who doubted her that true influence doesn't come from wealth alone. It comes from strength, skill, and integrity. Madeline smiled softly. Some battles weren't about money. They were about dignity. And tonight, she had won both. Thank you so much for watching this story till the end. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned something from it. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, full of life lessons, drama, and emotions, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss an update. Your support means the world, and it helps me keep bringing you more inspiring and unforgettable stories. Stay tuned because more amazing stories are on the way.